So we are in chapter 9, which is titled as the most confidential knowledge. So we did verse 1 and 3, 1 to 3, which were kind of the essence of practicing bhakti and having faith and being non-envious. Those were the qualities that were mentioned. And in the last discussion, we went over verses 3 to 10, actually. 3 to 10. And they were kind of a bit confusing verses. So we discussed that how those verses 4 to 10 are discussing Krishna's different manifestations as sustenance, maintenance, sustenance, and destruction aspect. And in the text 4, Krishna said that in my unmanifested form, I'm all pervasive. So that form is as the Brahman. And then he said, all beings are in me, but I'm not in them. So all beings are in me is like a Paramatma, but then he's not in them as Bhagavan, the Sham Sundar Roop. Then in text 5, we read how, even though in text 4, he's saying that all beings are in me, but then he's saying they don't rest in me. So what he means is that he's not burdened by the creation. And then he says, I'm everywhere as Paramatma, but I'm not a part of this cosmic manifestation as Bhagavan. So that's something he said. And then the last one, Krishna gave an analogy of mighty wind blowing everywhere. And but then the wind blowing, but then it rests within the sky. So there's unlimited freedom in a limited framework that we have. So I remember I gave the analogy that, we all are in this discussion. We can switch off our cameras and go wherever we want to, but we cannot just grow wings and fly off. So we have some freedom, but it's not unlimited. There's a limitation to it. So that was a sustenance aspect we discussed. And then in the 7th and 8th verse, we discussed the creation and destruction aspect. So creation and destruction aspect. Okay, so let's see, do I have anything beyond this? No, that's the last slide. So let me share where's that chapter? Where's the chapter? Just give me 1 minute, please. Today we'll get going with verse 11. So that's a different section that Krishna is going to kick off from verse 11. Yes, okay. Yes. So the verse 10 was kind of a summary of the last section we did about the inconceivable potencies of Krishna, which ended by Krishna telling him that Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetuna anena konteya jagat viparivartate. That I am this material energy is under my control. So Krishna, after mentioning the entire material energy, that how he's pervasive, and even though he's pervasive, they do not rest on him. But he's saying, at the end of the day, I'm the one to whom it all belongs. Okay, so this was verse 10. And so from 11th onwards, if I show you the section again of the... So if you see, so verse 4 to 10 was inconceivable relationship. And now 11 to 25, Krishna will focus on people who are non-worshippers or even indirect worshippers. Even if they're worshippers, but they're indirect worshippers. So coming to the other one. So this 11 to 19 is this section about indirect, or probably initially part of the 11th is part of the section from 11 to 19 the initial verses are going to talk about different kind of worshippers, and then Krishna will talk about non-worshippers or indirect non-worshippers. And then later on from 20 to 25, Krishna will talk about demigod worshippers. But the essence that you have to understand in this chapter is that Krishna is stressing on himself. The entire chapter is all about mama, so everything about mama. So Krishna is bringing himself into the picture completely now. That I am everything. Whatever you see, everything depends on me. In the earlier chapters, even though it might seem similar, 7th chapter, for example, it seems similar, but the focus was not on Krishna. He didn't focus it on himself completely. But this chapter, he's focusing everything on himself, telling that he is the supreme in every way. So let's start with the 11th verse. Before we kick on, anything that was not clear from the last section? I'm just asking because I know it was a bit complicated.
There are 4 or 5 people in that class, man. But off and on, I have any both channels here.
Anything from anybody? If there was, if not, that's also fine. We can move ahead. Okay, so we'll get going from this 11th verse. Avajananti mam budha manusim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme lord of all that be. Okay. So now Krishna is mentioning that there are people who feel that this is the talk of Duratma. Those who are attracted to see Krishna as a mortal man, as a politician, as a superhuman being, but fail to understand him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this purport is going to focus on 4 things. The purport is an important one. We'll go through the whole purport. It's going to focus on 4 things. How Krishna's appearance is divine, how his activities are divine, how his features are divine, and how the deity form is divine. So understanding these 4 aspects, or these 4 aspects will be detailed explained here. So Prabhupada brings with a very interesting line here. From the explanation of the previous verses in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. So Prabhupada is referring to the verses that we just read, 4 to 10, about the inconceivable potencies of Krishna. The personality of Godhead, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation, cannot be a human being. Yet there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he is the original Supreme Personality, as is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Brahma Krishna, the Supreme Lord. Right. So now Prabhupada is going to go through some of the, where's those verses? Sorry, I'm just going through looking at the purport, coming to the section where I wanted to bring out. Okay, we will come to that as we go. So there are many verses, even in Bhagavatam, we know there are episodes where Krishna first comes in as a 4-armed form. Anybody remembers which episode is that? Krishna appearing as 4 arms, in his 4-armed form. It comes in the Srimad Bhagavatam at 2 places. So I'll give you a minute to think about it. Anybody remembers? Krishna coming in a 4-armed form in 2 places. Yes, at least 2 that I can think of at the moment. Might be even more than that. Who remembers that?
Hare Krishna, I do not remember which chapter it is, but on Arjuna's request, Krishna appears in four-arm form when he asks to see his universal form. And then when he is bewildered by that form, then he asks him to show his four-arm form and then to the normal form.
Yes, that's in Bhagavad Gita. That's the 11th chapter we're going to read.
Oh, okay. Yeah. 11th
I'm asking
chapter.
Bhagavatam. And I think Mataji, Radharani Mataji was saying something. Mataji, are you still there? Okay, seems like.
That's what Prabhuji, like when he was born.
Yeah, that was one of the episodes.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, so when he was born, he showed his four-arm form to Vasudev and Devaki. And then, as the story goes, they got scared, and they requested Krishna to come back in his two-armed form, and Krishna did that. And does anybody remember another episode?
Yes, Prabhu. It is also when he wants to take birth as Ramchandra. Then he, before coming as Ramchandra, he gives this form of forearm to Mata Kaushalya, and then Mata Kaushalya requests that he comes in his two-arm form. So he then comes in two-arm forms.
Okay.
As a child to her.
Okay. I'm not aware of that episode. Is it in the Bhagavatam or in the Ramayana? Probably you're quoting from Ramayana, I think.
No, it is in the Bhagavatam also, Prabhu.
It is there? Okay. I might have missed that. Okay. Yes. The other episode was, when Ashwathama was brought in front of Draupadi to be punished, there were two parties that formed there. Draupadi was saying, don't kill him. I don't want him to suffer like I am suffering for my children. I don't want his mother to suffer like I am suffering. But then there was a Bhima who wanted him to be killed. And it became so heated up that Krishna had to show his form, come out with his forearms to stop all of them. So there are examples where Krishna, even though he seems human-like, but he's not human-like form. Now somebody can ask us that then why does he show us that human-like form? Why doesn't he just come up as the four-armed form? Why does he even have to show up that the human-like two-armed form? And that's been answered in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sukadev Goswami answers that. Let me see if I can pull up that verse, if I can remember it. It comes in the chapter of Ras Leela. I think that's the 10th canto, 33rd chapter, where Sukadev Goswami tells us the reason as to why Krishna is appearing as in a human-like form and not in like a god. Is that? Yes. Okay. I'll share this. So for those who are keeping record, it's 10th canto, 33rd chapter, verse number 36. Anugrahya bhaktanam manusam deham asthita bhajate tadrishi krida yaha shrutva tatparo bhavet. When the Lord assumes a human-like body to show mercy to his devotees, he engages in such pastimes as will attract those who hear about them to become dedicated to him. Right? So, and then the purport, Prabhupada's disciples have translated this purport, and they're saying, it's said that when Lord Krishna descends to this world in his original two-handed form, out of kindness, he manifests that form in a way that his devotees conditioned in human society can perceive and understand. Right? So the reason that he assumes a human-like body is to attract us, living entity, attract us human beings. He doesn't have to come in a human-like body to present himself as God. But if he would have come in a four-armed form, people would have looked at him with awe and reverence. And bhakti is rarely achieved, or let me put it this way, the sweet love of bhakti is rarely achieved in awe and reverence. It's not possible. Bhakti is only achieved in the other four So there is Shanta Ras. So Shanta is awe and reverence. Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya are the four rasas. So Sakha is friendship, Dasya is as a servant. So we have Sakhya, we have Arjun, Dasya, we have Daruka, and there are many other servants. And then Vatsalya is Mother Yashoda, and then Vatsalya is Mother Yashoda, and Madhurya is Radharani. So in these forms, in these rasas, is when Krishna is able to have a loving relationship with us. But in the four-armed form, it's more of awe and reverence. There's a distance between us and Krishna. So for that reason, Krishna doesn't appreciate that awe and reverence that much. He prefers that we have a loving relationship with him. Because of that reason, he comes as a human-like form. He's not bound to come as a human-like form, but he comes because that way only we are able to conceive a relationship with him. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So that is why that's why Krishna is saying here that I descend in a human-like form. But then there are people who get fooled by that. He's a human-like form. And he's not the one we are supposed to pay our obeisances to. We are supposed to pay our obeisances to the unmanifested Lord sitting in his heart, and all this kind of nonsense is propagated. Right? So that's the appearance, right? So this is the appearance is divine. And let's go to the section where Prabhupada starts establishing these four things. Where's that? There's a verse that Prabhupada quotes. Here, so let's start from here. There are many controversies between the impersonalists and the personalists about the Lord's appearance as a human being. But if we consult Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the authoritative texts for understanding the signs of Krishna, then we can understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is not an ordinary man, although he appeared on this earth as an ordinary man. And then Prabhupada quotes Srimad Bhagavatam 1:120, Kritvan kila karmani saha ramena keshava ati martyani bhagavan gudha kapata manusa. Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with Balram, played like a human being, and so masked, he performed many superhuman acts. So this is about his appearance. I mentioned to you that there are four things that Prabhupada is going to focus on this purport. First is the appearance, which is divine. And he's starting with the reference to Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he quotes that example we just talked about, Babhuva Prakarta Shishu, that he comes as a Shishu, as a child, as a baby in a four-round form, and then he converts himself to a regular child. It's in Bhagavatam. And then, Achyutarade Mataji pointed out that in the 11th chapter, Arjun asks for the 400 form, to see the 400 form. Teneva Rupena Chaturbhujena. Right? So then Prabhupada is going to quote some from the, where's that other? Oh. Okay, might be, I'm just confused here. I'm looking for something else, but probably it's in a different verse. Yeah. So these are about his divine appearance, right? So then Prabhupada will talk about how his activities are divine. Right? So we'll see that and then Prabhupada will also bring out about the Archamurti, the form of Supreme Lord in the temple. So this is about a neophyte devotee. Prabhupada is highlighting that a neophyte devotee simply gives attention to the Archa, the form of the Supreme Lord, does not respect other living entities. So he's just looking at the Lord in the Archa form, which is also Krishna. That's also being highlighted here. And Prabhupada is saying that everyone should therefore be given proper respect and should not be neglected. So there are many impersonalists who deride temple worship. So we talk referring to temple worship here, that his deity form is also divine. Right? And they say that since God is everywhere, why should one restrict himself to temple worship? But if God is everywhere, is he not in the temple or in the deity? So it always happens. I might have told you about this episode that a couple of months ago, I met somebody from a practicing Christianity, and he was really very offensively speaking about deity worship. And he said, "Oh, no, why do you worship a deity?" And so I asked him this thought that, if you're saying God is all pervasive, why can't he be in a deity form? And he just kept on rambling about that. Oh no, that's offensive, that's a sin, and so on and so forth. But Prabhupada establishes for us the Achinta Bheda philosophy here. We were talking about it briefly last week also. Although the personalists, so personalists are those people who believe only in the personal form, that Krishna is only in a personal form. And the impersonalists are the ones who believe only that that there is no form. So there are two groups, personalists and impersonalists. But where do we come into being? We are Achinta Bheda Tattva. That is why the philosophy given to us by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is perfect, because it encompasses every philosophy of personalism and impersonalism both. So Prabhupada is establishing that although the personalist and the impersonalist will fight with one another perpetually, a perfect devotee in Krishna consciousness knows that although Krishna is the supreme personality, he is all pervading, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Although his personal abode is Golok Vrindavan and he's always staying there, by his different manifestations of energy and by his plenary expansion, he's present everywhere in all parts of the material and spiritual creation. So that's Prabhupada establishing here the Achinta Bhed philosophy. Yes, we love Krishna in a personal form. Okay. And because that is the most relatable form for us. Right. And but then there are people who believe in and Krishna himself is explaining that I am all pervasive. But that's an impersonal form. And we also accept that. But we love the personal form more because we can have a loving relationship with the personal form. Right? In the 12th chapter, when we read that, we will come to a point where Krishna himself will say that klesho adhiktaras tesham avyakta sakta chetasham avyakta hi gatir dukkham deha vadbhir avapyate. The 5th verse of the 12th chapter says of Bhagavad Gita that that it's practically impossible for somebody practicing impersonalism in this world nowadays, especially in this human body form, in the Kali Yuga. It's practically impossible. It's very hard. Krishna himself says that, right? So klesho, it's klesha, it's very hard. Klesho adhiktaras tesha. Avyakta means unmanifested. So to have a relationship with the unmanifest is very, very hard and complicated. So but then we don't reject the impersonalist aspect, neither do we reject the personalist aspect. But then again, we bring both of them together in understanding that I love Krishna in the personal form, but he's also all pervasive in a Brahman form, or he's also situated in everybody's heart, in every atom as Paramatma. So we accept that also. So it's a concept of personal loving relationship with Krishna. And I recently read a verse. Let me see if I can find that about. This was, I think. So give me 1 second. It's in the Srimad Bhagavatam 4:24, 44. 4:24, 44. Yes, this is a very good verse. I like. Let me share this. So it's 4th canto, 24th chapter, verse number 44. Here, Lord Shiva is talking to the Prachetas, and he's telling them how to pray to the Supreme Lord. So this is a beautiful darshanam no didrikshunam dehi bhagavata architam rupam priyatamam swanam sarvendriya gunanjanam. My dear Lord, I wish to see you exactly in the form that your very dear devotees worship. You have many other forms, but I wish to see your form that is especially liked by the devotees. Please be merciful upon me and show me that form. For only that form worshipped by the devotees can perfectly satisfy all the demands of the senses. So Lord Shiva here is establishing a very important point for us. He's not rejecting other forms. He says, you have many other forms. I don't have any problem with that. But I want to see a form in which all my senses are satisfied. Right? We cannot nullify our senses. That is why Krishna is called Rishikesha, because he's the master of all the senses. Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. So when I'm able to engage all my senses in the service of Rishikesha, that Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. That Bhakti is the topmost. So that is why we love the two-armed form of Krishna, of a Shyam Sundar. And just to reiterate which I have said a couple of times, we don't reject other forms, but we as Vaishnavas, we as coming from by the mercy of Prabhupada, we know that the most lovable form is the one that is of the two-armed form of Krishna. So if this is 4th canto, 24th chapter, verse number 44. So I'll go back to where we were reading. So this is a very important paragraph that Prabhupada has established here in the end, that accepting all the forms, but for us, what's being lovable, what's lovable for us. So this establishes, this verse is now establishing that Krishna is saying that people who are fools, they don't understand my personality, right? We have so many episodes in Shastras. Duryodhan, he saw Krishna standing right there in front of him, and what did he look up Krishna as? As a mystic and as a cowherd boy, and he told his soldiers to capture Krishna. So that was a foolish thing to do. So he was fool. He was deriding Krishna. So because he didn't know the nature of the Supreme Lord. And he repeated this many a times. Duryodhan was a big fool. Before the war was about to start, Duryodhan and Arjun both go to Krishna. And Krishna says, on one hand is my entire army, the Narayani Sena, and on the other hand is me alone, and I won't even fight the war. Now you choose. And Arjun, without even a thought, chooses Krishna. And Duryodhan thinks, he becomes very happy. So that's his foolish nature. He's still thinking Krishna, what can Krishna do? He's not even fighting. So he was just thought that Krishna is okay. He might be powerful, but he cannot stand in front of me and my army. So that's the nature of a foolish person. So now we'll go to the next verse. Mogh asha, mogh karmano, mogh jnana vichetasha, rakshasim asurim chaiva, prakriti mohini shrita. So mogh asha. So mogh asha is referred to those who are baffled in their hopes, right? They're baffled in their hopes. And yes, so they're baffled in their hopes. And then there is mogh karmana, right? So who are baffled in their hopes are karmis. They're typical materialist people. Who are bound by this asha, they're mogh asha, that someday we will become happy by accumulating material things. And they will be baffled in their hopes. Everybody's baffled. Nobody gets everything under the sky. Mogh karmana, those who are karma kandis, they are taking shelter of the Vedas. They perform rituals, but to go to heavenly pleasures. So the pleasures of this material world are not enough for them. iPad, iPhone, that's not good enough for them. And their efforts are also baffled because they also have to come back to this world. Mogh jnana, people who try to cultivate knowledge, to understand what is the absolute truth. Their efforts are also bewildered because vichetashaha, they are bewildered in knowing Krishna's position. They don't understand that I am inconceivable. You cannot wrap your mind around me. That is the challenge that we have with Krishna. Right? So that's mogh asha, mogh karmana, mogh jnana vichetasha, rakshasim asurim chaiva. So people who take shelter of demoniac nature, rakshasa. So there is a difference between rakshasa and asura. Rakshasas are man-eaters. Asura is one who's what's that? Asuramante iti. So one who delights in carnal pleasures, lusty affairs. So they are atheistic in nature. If we engage too much in ignorant activities, our faith in Krishna evaporates. Okay? So that's something we have to understand. In the 15th chapter, there is a very famous verse where Krishna says, Sarvasya chaha hridaya sanivishto mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. So he says, mata, I give, smriti, memory, jnanam, knowledge, and apohanam. Apohanam means forgetfulness. Right? So people who get too much into ignorant activities, they slowly forget Krishna. So it's very much that they start deprioritizing Krishna. And it can happen to us as devotees also. We should always fear the fade, as is, it's said. Because if you're not practicing our bhakti sincerely, there is a high chance that slowly we will fade away from it if we start taking it casually, right? So we can fade away, and fading away, the problem with that is that when we fade away, we don't even realize that we are fading away, and 5 years later, we'll just realize that I don't even remember Prabhupada's mantra, pranam mantra. So we should not fade away. So that's what Krishna is highlighting here, that people can, because they are too much atheistic in nature, we can fall off. And as we have talked about it many times, strong sadhana is defined by 3 things: strict, serious, and sincere. Strict means we are consistent in our activities. We do it daily, irrespective of in whatever condition I am. I do my 16 rounds daily. I do my reading daily, hearing daily. I do it every day. Wherever I am on the planet Earth, I do it. Strict, that's strict. Serious means we give full attention in what we do. It shouldn't be casual. So that's the other aspect of being serious. That's the aspect of being serious. So strict, serious, and sincere. So sincere means our motive is to please Krishna. Right? So it's our responsibility to have an inspirational sadhana. Nobody else is going to come and inspire us. Obviously, Krishna is inspiring us from our heart, but we also have to put a significant effort in our lives, right? Unless we don't increase our capacity to serve, we will never be fully satisfied. Nobody likes a plateau. So that's what Krishna is highlighting here in this verse, right? So that people who are Rakshasim Asurim, they delight in so many ignorant activities that they become atheistic in nature. So whose shelter do all these people take? Prakritim Mohinim Shrita. So Prakriti, Mohinim Shrita. And let's see what Prabhupada transfers there. Prakriti means nature. So the material nature is what they are taking shelter of. Right? So Krishna is telling this. He's talking about the people who are duratmas here. No? So 11th and 12th are about duratma, and 13, 14, I think is a different tone, but we'll go there. So now when you will think about this, right, you'll think that, oh, Prabhupada will start blasting these people. No, but Prabhupada turns the guns towards us. He's saying there are many devotees who assume themselves to be in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, but at heart do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the absolute truth. We should not cheat ourselves. Doubting is okay. We have doubts, we clarify them from sadhu, guru, shastra, but we shouldn't falsify. We shouldn't just say, I don't believe in Krishna, but I'll just show off as a devotee because I get respect or I have followers or whatever thing we are after, right? So for them, the fruit of devotional service will never be tasted. Right? So Prabhupada is very clearly pointing it to us as practicing devotees, as sadhakas, that at heart, we have to make that change. And as I mentioned, it comes by being strict, serious, and sincere. So Prabhupada has turned the guns towards us. And so these are the duratmas. Let's see if Prabhupada is saying it. So here he's talking about mogha jnana. Their mental speculations to arrive at the absolute truth bring them to the false conclusion that the ordinary living entity and Krishna are one and the same. So we have talked about knowledge also in the past, right? So if somebody can come to a point of understanding after his knowledge, after his intellectual speculation that Krishna is the supreme, that's fine. But if people are cheating themselves through this mental speculation process, they'll come to the conclusion that Krishna and me are the same. Aham Brahmasmi. I am God. I am Krishna. I was there was a festival I was distributing books at around probably 5 or 6 years ago. There was this Afro-American who came to me, and he was looking at the books excitedly. And I offered him a Bhagavad Gita. And I started telling him about, hey, Krishna, this and that. And he said, oh yeah, I know everything. I'm Vishnu and I'm waiting to turn into Kalki. And he, for a minute, I smiled, I laughed, I thought he's just joking, but he was serious. So then I stopped joking. And I realized that those are the kind of people who, after reading all these fancy literatures, come to the conclusion that they themselves are God. So those are the people, Moga Jnana, whose knowledge has been bewildered them. Okay. And Prabhupada is quoting here, Brihad Vishnu Smriti. Okay. Let's see what Prabhupada is saying in this. One who considers the body of Krishna to be material should be driven out from all rituals and activities of the Shruti and Smriti. If one by chance sees his face, one should at once take bath in the Ganges to rid himself of infection. People jeer at Krishna because they are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their destiny is certainly to take birth after birth in the species of the atheistic and demoniac life. Perpetually, their real knowledge will remain under delusion, and gradually they will regress to the darkest region of creation. Yeah. So Prabhupada again is highlighting envy. This is the all anasuya way. That was the first verse we discussed in detail in the first verse of this chapter. Krishna is speaking this knowledge to Arjun because Arjun is anasuya way. He's free of envy. So I have a lot of envy in my heart. I should make every sincere effort to clean that envy out of my heart. Otherwise, I'm practically fooling myself in this process of bhakti. I'm wasting my time. Better than that, I just go and enjoy material world outside. There is no pleasure there also, but why to unnecessarily sit for 2 hours every day and chant and then read and have all these restrictions on food and make my life so hard. But if I'm not trying to remove that envy out of my heart. So I don't know if you all noticed, but Prabhupada quotes a lot from Smritis, from Upanishads, and so and so forth. Right? And the reason Prabhupada does that is because he wants to send out a message to impersonalists. Okay, there's a challenge with impersonalists is that they want to take things from the Smriti. Oh no, sorry, no, Smriti or Shruti. Let me see, what was that? I'm getting a bit confused here. Where was that? We discussed that, right? Once was that in the introduction, overview, probably? Yes, it was in the introduction. Let me share that. So if you remember, we discussed this slide way back when we started the Bhagavad Gita. So it's Shruti and Smriti are two sections of our Vedic knowledge. And Shruti is all these, right? Samhitas, Brahmana, Upanishads, the Vedas, the Upavedas, and all that, the Angas of Vedas and all that. Whereas Smriti is all the Puranas, Mahabharata is there, Ramayana is there, and we have the Bhagavatam and all that. So the impersonalists, they don't listen, they don't like to listen from the Smritis. They have more faith on the Shrutis. So Prabhupada goes where they want it to be heard from. Prabhupada gives examples from Upanishads. And you will see this across the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada talks of Shrutis, of Upanishads, of Vedas, of Smritis, of Samhitas, Brahma Samhita, and so on and so forth, more than he talks about Bhagavatam, because he wants to also hit the false philosophy of the impersonalists. So that is one reason why Prabhupada refers so much from all these sections of other literatures. Where'd that go? Oh, okay. So we'll come back to Bhagavad Gita. Yes. So that's why Prabhupada is quoting here, but his purpose is multifold here, to tell us not to be envious and also understand that the Krishna he comes as a human, but then it's not his body is not ordinary. Even when we go to the temple and we worship the deities, it's not an ordinary form we are looking at. Prabhupada gives a very good analogy of a post office, of a post box. There are official post box, authorized post box, where you put your letter and then it goes to your destination. But if you put it in any box, it won't go to your destination. It won't go to the destination. So there are authorized and unauthorized forms of sending messages. Similarly, in a deity form, when devotees who have been trained, who do pran pratishtha, the Lord factually accepts our bhakti through that form of the deity. right? And there are many evidences in Shastra, that devotees can call the Lord. Advaita Acharya, he offered Ganges water and Tulasi, and Mahaprabhu appeared. So, right? So there are so many deity forms in India. That is why, and they have so much power in it, right? We have Jagannath, we have Sri Rangam, we have then Krishna in Vrindavan, then there is Srinath, and there's Balaji. Ashish Prabhu was telling me about Balaji a few days ago. In all these different forms, Krishna is manifesting his different different roles. From Jagannath, his pastime of eating. Sri Rangam, he's manifesting his pastime of sleeping, and in Tirupati, Lord is manifesting his opulence, right? Srinathji is manifesting his pastime of raising the Govardhan, right? And there is a there is a story that I read about Tirupati Balaji, that how there was this devotee, his name was Ramdas, and he came on a pilgrimage to Tirupati, and there he was mesmerized by the Lord, and he stayed there. He would do a lot of service, and then he was such a pure devotee that the Lord would ask him to come at night and play with him when the priests have left, right? Even the Lord can be bored of his opulent awe and reverence kind of a position, so he also wants to act like a normal person, right? He can get bored of serious roles. And then Lord played with him, but one day the Lord accidentally left his necklace out while playing with this devotee, and it was time for the priest to come, so he ran back to the altar, and there the priest noticed that there was a necklace missing. And then this devotee with whom the Lord was playing was bringing the necklace back in his own simple way. And the priests catch him, and they said, "Oh my God, do you know what a big sin it is to steal from the Lord, and you will suffer for next 1,000 lives because of doing that." And he, in his simple way, just told them, "No, no, no. God came to play with me, and then he left his necklace, so I bought it. I was bringing it back to him." And they didn't believe him. And he said, then the priest said, "We'll put you in a room full of sugar canes, and if the Lord is your friend and he actually comes with you, you can show us by finishing this entire room, finishing all the sugar canes in this entire room." Right? And he was perplexed. He said, well, "What's this going on? Please help me, Lord." And there were guards at the gate, so he couldn't come out. But the guards, a while later, started hearing a sound of an elephant in the room, who was eating all the sugarcane. And next morning, lo and behold, all the sugarcane was disappeared. All was eaten by the Lord. And then the priest believed him. And that place is called, what's it called? I'm forgetting. Hathiram Babaji temple. Ashish Prabhu, please correct me if I'm wrong anywhere. Hathiram Babaji temple, is that the one, right? Yeah. So yeah, so that temple is famous as that. So I was just trying to say that how Krishna reciprocates in the deity form with his devotees. Ye yathamam papadyante tam sathaiva bhajamiham. So let's come to the 13th chapter. So 11 and 12 are Duratmas. 13 and 14 are Mahatmas. Okay, it's going to talk about Mahatmas. Mahatmanas tu mam partha daivim prakrte mashrita bhajanti ananya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So, earlier, Krishna mentioned about Mohinim Prakritim Shrita. So, they were under the influence of deluding Prakriti. But here, they are under the care of Daivim Prakriti. And Daivim Prakriti, Prabhupada is translating a divine nature. So these people are the Mahatmas now being talked about. Earlier it was Duratmas, right? And in these two verses, Krishna will give the internal and external symptoms of the Mahatma. So there's this word called tu, Mahatmanas tu. U means but. So he's saying that it indicates a contrast to the Duratmas being spoken earlier, right? So now Krishna is mentioning about this is the internal form of right. So he's saying that they are engaged in devotional service because they know me as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's an internal thing, right? So we take shelter of Krishna, and there are 6 ways of taking shelter of Krishna. You know about, right? Anukulasya sankalpa, pratikulasya varjanam, rakshishyati vishwaso, goptritve varnam tatha, karpanya, atma nikshepa. Yeah, karpanya, atma nikshepa. Let me pull up the verse. I think it's comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela. If I can open and find it, Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela. And Mahaprabhu is explaining about devotional service to Sanatana Goswami. So Anukulasya sankalpa, pratikulasya varjanam, rakshishyati vishwaso, goptritve varnam tatha, atma nikshepa karpanya, sadvidha sharanagati. 6 divisions of surrender are acceptance of those things favorable to devotional service, rejection of unfavorable things, conviction that Krishna will give protection, the acceptance of Lord as one's guardian or master, full self-surrender, and humility. So these are the 6 ways by which we surrender to Krishna. Right? We get fully engaged in devotional service. Right? So that's being talked about here. So that's how the Mahatma surrenders to the soul. Prabhupada talks about it, that one who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. This is the qualification. We all can become free from the control of material nature by surrendering to Krishna. This is the preliminary formula, Prabhupada is saying. The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. So a Mahatma does not doubt it at all. He is fully surrendered to Krishna. Right? Marobi Rakhobi, Jo Ichha Tohar, Nitya Dasa Prati, Tohara Adhikar. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings this in his one of his poems, that whether you kill me or you protect me, it's Krishna. I'm your eternal servant. It's your right on me that you can do whatever. So that kind of a faith a pure devotee has. Right? Once when Prabhupada was traveling in the train, he said that, oh, I want to eat warm rice, fresh cooked rice. And then, one of the devotees, what was the name? Oh, I'm forgetting. Okay, so I forgot. So the devotees, I'm forgetting the name. What's Mataji's name? Okay, the name is just slipping out of my mind. It's there somewhere, but it's going on. If you remember, so it's about this Mataji who wrote a cookbook. And if anybody remembers her name, please tell me also. She wrote a
Yamuna Mataji. Yamuna Mataji.
Yes, Yamuna Mataji. Wow, my brain is just freezing up. Yes, so Yamuna Mataji was traveling with Mahaprabhupada, and so he said, I want to eat fresh cooked rice. Yamuna Mataji went to the pantry, told the cooks there, my master wants to eat fresh cooked rice. Can you please vacate the kitchen for us? They were looking at her as if she's gone crazy. They say, we don't let anybody else cook in here. Please leave. And she said, if you don't let me cook, I'll jump off this train. And she said it with such intense conviction that they all were afraid that she might actually jump off the train. They said, okay, you can cook. So she cleaned up the kitchen, washed the utensils, cooked fresh rice for Prabhupada, and she offered her. So that's the kind of faith that a pure devotee has, right, on Krishna and on Guru. So that was a perfect definition of a Mahatma. They have no doubt about it. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrta namasyantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. So earlier what we read about, this verse is about more of an internal thing. It's a, they are mentally they're engaged in service of Krishna, right? These are the internal symptoms. But now in the next verse we are reading, these are all external symptoms. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrta namasyantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So these are external things. We chant Krishna's glories. We when we talk to devotees, we talk about Krishna, and then we do all our activities with great determination that Krishna is protecting me. We pay our obeisances. So these are external symptoms of a Mahatma. So right. So Satatam Kirtanta, constantly chanting. So when we see pure devotees, if we all have access to pure devotees. There are so many Maharajs and senior devotees. They're always fully soaked with Krishna, love of Krishna, just like a sponge, right? Just if you have a fully soaked sponge, wherever you touch it, what's going to come out? Water is going to come out. Similarly, for a pure devotee, whenever and wherever he or she gets a minute, they'll speak about Krishna. That's Satatam Kirtayantam. Yatantascha dridhavrata. They're always engaged in sadhana bhakti with determination. Right? Even though that person is a pure devotee, still he continues to act in sadhana bhakti. He continues to do the activities that are supposed to be done, the physical activities. Right? Bowing down has been mentioned in this verse. Right? Raghunath Das Goswami, when he was in his old age, he would continue to go on parikrama of Govardhan. And Mahaprabhu told him, stop it. Why are you doing it? You're old, you'll die. He said, no, I have to do it. It's my vow. So that's Yatantascha Dridhavrta. That's the Dridhavrta of a pure devotee. Right? Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him a shila with a footprint of Krishna on it. A footprint, and there was a print of the herding stick of Krishna also. So then he told him, you go around this, and this will be considered as your parikrama. That rock or that shila is still there in the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. You can go and see it. So point is that even in the old age, Raghunath Das Goswami was demonstrating that he will not compromise any gesture of his external gesture, right? So whenever, the way to understand it for ourselves is that we should always prioritize Krishna. If we have our japa pending, please finish it first and then go do other activities. So we should make some changes also in our lives to be dridhavrata. Right? Then the next thing is namasyantascha mam bhaktya. Right? Namasyantya, devotee constantly offer obeisances to Lord, either in heart or physically, both the ways. Right? So Raghunath Das Goswami, again giving example, he would offer 1,000 obeisances daily. So when we do, we have the term Dandvat Pranam. So Dandvat means fully bowing down before the Lord, before the greatness of Lord. And the Dandvat is not physical only, it's mental also. We should offer some prayers to the Lord when we are paying our obeisances. Some people say, Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Deenabandhu, Jagatpate, Gopesha, Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta, Namastate. You can have your own prayers. Right? It's not necessary that you have this prayer itself, but some people have different prayers. Some people, when they pray, when they give obeisances, they chant their guru's mantra. Like when I pay obeisances, I chant my Guru Maharaj mantra and Prabhupada's mantra. The reason I do that is because I'm telling the Lord that I am nobody. You might not recognize me, but I am the servant of my spiritual master, who is a servant of Prabhupada, who's your pure devotee. So please accept me. So everybody has their own prayers. That's what I mean. So when we do this namasyantascha, when we do this offering of obeisances, we should have a prayer also to go along with it, right? And it is also equally important to understand the presence of Lord in others' heart, and we respectfully deal with them. The word namaste, which is in Sanskrit, it means I bow down to the greatness in you. So in the Vedic philosophy, our gestures are conducive to the philosophy we all live. That's the essence here. It's not just that internal also, but external also. So we have both these aspects. Right? And let's see what Prabhupada is saying. Anything here? Okay, let's see. As described in the second verse of this chapter, not only is this devotional service easy, but it can be performed in a happy mood. One does not need to undergo any severe penance and austerity. He can live this life in devotional service, guided by an expert spiritual master, and in any position, either as a householder, or a sannyasi, or a brahmachari. In any position, in anywhere in the world, he can perform the devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus become actually Mahatma, a great soul. So we all can become great souls by following this principle of Mahatma, the qualities that are given in 13th and 14th verse. Right? Once Prabhupada was giving a class, he was actually quoting the verse about the 12 Mahajans, and when he finished, one of his disciples said, Prabhupada, you are the 13th Mahajan. Prabhupada turned back to the devout disciple and said, you are the 14th Mahajan. What he meant was that you should endeavor to be like that. Yeah, not just my guru is great, process is great, everything is great. No. What about me? Whether I am great or not. Internal development has to be done to grow in bhakti. Right? We always glorify acharyas, we glorify the devotional process. That is good. But what do we do? Right? So that's more important. That's also equally important. That's what's being explained in these two verses. Right? And by reading Prabhupada's books, we get Prabhupada's association, and that helps in our internal development. I'll take a pause here. Any thoughts anybody has? Any comments? From 15, Krishna will change gears and he'll talk about people who worship the Lord indirectly. So I just want to take a pause here and see if anybody has any thoughts.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Today's lecture was really exceptional up till now. I especially really like the stories that you shared of Lord taking different forms accordingly, like that of Jagannath Ji or Srinath or Sriranganath and so on. So all these stories were really, really very nice and very sweet. So thank you for sharing those stories.
Thank you. Okay, if nothing else, we can move on to the next verses. 15 to Haribol, Prabhu.
Okay, so we just I was on my phone because I couldn't, my computer was booting up, so I was just paying attention, but and I finally got in the computer. But so these two slokas right now, what was your point that you're trying to give us? Like it's I know what the translation says, but can you sum it up a little clearer for me?
Yes, Prabhu. So the verse 13 and 14, they are talking about the qualities of a Mahatma.
Okay.
The verse 11th and 12th were talking about people who are duratmas, who are ignorant, fools. So all these verses, Krishna is talking in respect to himself now. That is the essence. Somebody might say, oh, Krishna has talked about these foolish people in the past also. But no, here he's specifically talking in relation to himself. So I'll just quickly show you. 11th, the purport was long. So 11th verse was, fools deride me when I descend in the human form. So there Krishna was saying that I come in a human form because I want to have relationship with my devotees, but people who don't understand me, they're fools. And then Prabhupada talked in length about the personal form of God and how all those things, how that is important. And he gave different examples of that. The 12th was about people who are attracted by demoniac and atheistic views. And they can be anybody, people who are karmana, karmis, pure karmis, materialistics. people who are in karma kanda, who are doing rituals just to go up to the heavenly planets to enjoy more, people who are using their mind to speculate on what God is. All these, Krishna says, are Rakshashim because they are not considering Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the two verses where Krishna is talking about Duratmas, people who are negative in their mindset, who are ignorant people, who are envious of Krishna. 13th and 14th verse are about Mahatmas, people who have a positive attitude towards Krishna, who have understood Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And 13th are the qualities of that person, internal qualities. What are that? They are fully engaged in devotional service, right? They are not deluded. So mentally and in their faith, they are never deluded. They never digress off that path. And they are always engaged in devotional service, satatam. So that's the internal qualities of a person who's a Mahatma. And then in the 14th verse, Krishna talked about the external qualities. What are these Mahatmas doing? They're always chanting my glories. They are working hard with determination. They're endeavoring with determination. We see all these Maharaj, right? They're traveling extensively. They're speaking extensively. Even though their health is falling off, they are not giving up. So they're endeavoring with a lot of determination. And they're always bowing down before the Lord because they understand that we are fully dependent on the Lord. So these are external qualities. So this is the sum up, Prabhu, of these 4 verses.
Yeah, that makes more sense now. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so coming to the 15th verse. So now 15th to so 11, 12 Duratmas, 13, 14 Mahatmas, and now he will talk of about people who are how to say indirectly worshipping. The indirect worship, which is detrimental, which doesn't help much. So we should always focus on the direct worship, right? So let's look at it and then we'll get into more details. Others who engage in sacrifice by cultivation of knowledge, worship the Supreme Lord as one without a second, as diverse in many and in the universal form. So there are 3 kinds of people being talked about here. Ekatvena, Prithakvena, Bahuda Vishvato Mukham. Ekatvena, in oneness. Prithakvena, in duality. And Bahuda Vishvato Mukham, in a more in the Vishwarupa of Krishna. Okay. So the Ekatva are monis. Okay. And the Prithakvena are the demigod worshippers. And the Bahuda Vishvato Mukham are the worshippers of the Virat Rupa of Krishna. They're called worshippers, but their focus is knowledge, jnana, right? So Krishna is mentioning that. Jnana yajnana. Their focus is jnana. Right? So even though they are indirectly worshipped, but their focus is still jnana. And as Krishna has mentioned earlier, people who are in jnani, they can get too self-absorbed and start thinking that they're God themselves and fall off the path. So they worship, but indirectly. That is why it's a different category, right? And Prabhupada in the purport, so there are 3 forms that I talked about. So in the purport, Prabhupada will say, he's still going to talk about all the 3 ones. He who worships himself as one with the Supreme Lord. So these are the impersonalists. They say, oh, I'll become God in the near future. That's the first category. He who concocts some form of the Supreme Lord and worships that. And this could be demigod worshippers and also worshippers of random gods. Some people suddenly they see a form of, they say, oh, in this stone, I see Hanumanji, and they just put a tilak on it and that becomes God for them. So that's they're concocting forms of the Lord. And then there is one who accepts the universal form, the Vishwarupa. So universal form of Vishwarupa means is that it's we understand that this material world is the whole in whole. That's all we worship, right? And then Prabhupada says, out of the above 3, the lowest, those who worship themselves as the Supreme Lord, thinking themselves to be the monis, are most predominant. So that's these kind of people are more in number. They think themselves to be God. Right? That's what Prabhupada is highlighting. And the Vishwarupa Upasaka are the 3rd class, include those who cannot conceive of anything beyond the manifestation of this material universe. They consider the universe to be a supreme organism or entity and worship that. This universe is also a form of the Lord. So there are different worshippers. So what Krishna is stressing in these verses is that I am the Supreme Lord. I am the source of everything. Be a Mahatma and focus on me. Don't try to take these indirect forms of worship. We don't need all these indirect forms of worship. Sometimes I, as a devotee, even present many other indirect ways of worshipping Krishna. I'll buy a new car and I'll say, oh, I'm doing it for Krishna. No, I'll use it for Krishna's service. If we have been given 64 limbs of bhakti in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 9 forms of bhakti given, shortened, further condensed, given in the Srimad Bhagavatam by Prahlad Maharaj, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Vandanam, Archanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam. And Mahaprabhu even condensed it to 5. Live in a holy place, read Bhagavatam, associate with devotees, chant those 5. But still, we try to go by the indirect method. We should try to do worship in as direct method as possible. We should not try to fool ourselves. I should not try to fool myself by doing things that my material side wants to enjoy, and then try to garb that or cover that with a bhakti perspective. That is why Krishna is highlighting here that there are people who do this. So those are not appreciated by Krishna. And so once having talked about these people, he's going to now elaborate upon the ones who are who accept the universal form, the Vishwarupa. He's going to elaborate upon that a bit more. It is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I'm the butter and the fire and the offering. Right. So what Krishna is doing here, he is establishing himself as the whole and soul of the yajna procedure. Right. So Kratu means Vedic sacrifices, yajna is smriti sacrifices. Swadha means oblations. We do swaha, right, when we do a fire sacrifice. Aushadha means he's the herbs that we put into the yajna. And he's also the mantra, and he's also the ghee, and he's the fire. So the purpose of yajna is to acknowledge the proprietary of the Lord over everything. Right? Whenever we do that yajna sacrifices, you all must have chanted, right? So it says, idam vishvave, idam namha swaha. Right? So we say that it belongs to Vishnu, not to me. Right? So we have a tendency to become a lord of everything we survey, as Prabhupada says. What did man do when he first reached the moon? He put a flag there. This is the mood we have. This is the mood I have. So the Vishwarupa Upasaka, the people who think that this material world is all in all, are very much engaged in this. Right? There is a sect in India, or not, you might all know about it. They only accept yajna, and they do not accept deity worship. I think they're the Arya Samajis, right? Arya Samajis, yes. So that's like the philosophy of what's the other? Ardh Kukurniya, half chicken philosophy, right? There was this chicken who used to give golden eggs, but he also used to eat food. So the farmer thought, I'll chop off the head, and then I won't have to feed the chicken anything, but then chicken will continue to lay golden eggs for me. So that's the Ardh Kukurniya. We cannot cut off something and only take a part of it. That's demoniac in nature. So Krishna is saying, I am everything. In yajna, whatever you see, I am the whole and soul of it. So that is to be understood. Right? So we shouldn't get too much into the technical aspect, what Krishna is saying here. Otherwise, we might miss the transcendental aspect to it. If you know, there's a story in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it comes in the 10th canto, that Krishna, Balram and their friends, they're playing in the forest. And Krishna and Balram, they feel hungry, and then they tell their friends that, there are some brahmanas doing some sacrifice in the nearby. Please go and get some food from them. So the friends go and they ask the brahmanas. The brahmanas don't even look at them. Even though the children say that, they say that, hey, Krishna and Balram are hungry. So just imagine they're so engrossed in the technical aspect that they have forgotten the transcendental, that they're doing that sacrifice for Krishna, but they didn't recognize the Lord whom they were calling. So the consumption of mind in too many technical things can also be a bit deleterious for us. So Krishna is helping us understand that this yajna form is his manifestation. So this has been talked about in this verse. So he just briefly brought it out here because he has been talking about different kinds of people, and then the question might come, okay, what about those who and he briefly touched upon karmakandis who do these rituals also. So Krishna is covering the whole spectrum, that there are so many different forms, people who worship me indirectly. Krishna is requesting them, don't do that, come to me directly. There are people who are karmis, hardcore materialists. There are people who are doing these sacrifices. There are people who are demigod worshippers, people who just believe that this material world is all in all. And Krishna is gathering everybody and telling, hey, I am everything. If you are doing some sacrifices, I am the one to be attained from that. If you are, so Krishna is establishing. So if you are Vishvato-mukham, you're looking at this material world also. I am the source of this material world also. And that's what Krishna will do in the verses 17 to 19. So let's see that. Okay. I'm the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sam, and the Yajurvedas. So here Krishna is now establishing upon the that he underlies the whole universe. He's the father of the whole universe. Pita. What does a Pita do? He creates. Mata. What does a Mata do? She supplies all the materials necessary for sustenance. Dhata. He supports. And he's the grandsire. Pitamaha means grandfather. Right? So he's talking about manifestation of Lord as the universe, right? So, and then he says all the three Vedas are coming from him. He's talking about Om, right? That we talked about Om in the 7th chapter also. Pranava Sarva Vedeshu, Shabdake Paurusham Nishu. Pranava Sarva Vedeshu, that I am Pranava in all the sounds, Sarva Vedeshu. So the material side is taken care by the Mata, Dhata, Pitamaha. Spiritual side is taken care by the Om. Right? So in the Kali Yuga, chanting is the essence. Chanting is the way by which we connect with Krishna. That's the quality of this material, of this Kali Yuga, as well as the right path also. And which verse is that? So in 12th canto, there's this verse that comes that highlights what in each yuga is the essence. How do people worship in each yugas? So this is 12th canto, 3rd chapter, verse number 52. Krite yad dhyayato vishnum traitayam yajato makhe dwapare paricharyayam kalau tadhari sankirtana. Tadhari kirtana. Whatever result was obtained in the Sat Yuga by meditation, in Treta Yuga by performing sacrifice, in Dwapar Yuga by serving the Lord's feet, that is deity worship, can be obtained in Kali Yuga simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So in this Yuga, the essence is by chanting. So the material as well as the spiritual aspect is in Krishna. Krishna is that. That's what Krishna is establishing here in this verse. So even if you're looking at this material world, he says, I am it. I am the maintainer, I am the grandsire, I'm the supporter, I'm everything. So this is for the people who are Vishvato-mukham, who are looking at only this material world. So even for those, Krishna is saying, I am everything, come to me directly. Don't go to all these random things. Right. So that's Krishna is explaining. Right. And then in the 11th canto, the verse comes, right? Kalim Sabha Jayanti Arya Gunagya Sar Bhagina. Yatra Sankirtane Neva Sarva Swartho Abhilabhyate. That in this Kali Yuga is a very bad age, but there's one quality. By chanting, everything can be attained. So it makes us very simple also. That people who truly know Kali Yuga, they appreciate Kali Yuga because we don't have to go through the hard life of, deity worship or sacrifices and all that. So, but in this Kali Yuga, we can attain this by chanting. We already talked about Om. I won't go into the details of that. We talked about in the 7th chapter in detail what does Om mean. Then again, furthermore, Krishna is establishing himself as I'm the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place and the eternal seed. This is one of my favorite verses. This is the complete package. Gatir Bharta Prabhu Shakshi Nivasha Sharanam Suhirit Prabhava Pralaya Sthanam Nidhanam Bijam Avyayam. That Krishna is everything. all encompassing. You don't have to look for anything else. He is the be all and the end all of this universe. He's not just a king sitting in his kingdom. He's the foundation of all beings. So what is the Prabhu word? There's a word Prabhu, right? Prabhu. He's the Lord. Prabhu means he's the Lord. Even though we sometimes turn away our faces from him, but we are still serving him through Maya, indirectly. Yeah? He's the Supreme Lord. Sakshi, he's sitting in my heart. He's the Sakshi, he's the observer. He's the witness to everything. Nivasaha. My house may be this earthly Nivasa, but this earth is also under the shelter of Krishna. Sharanam, there is no greater shelter than Krishna. He's the supreme safety. Prabhava Pralaya. So there's a cyclic existential alterations that keep happening. So Krishna is the underlying factor to that also. Avyayam, what does Avyayam means? He is not exhausted. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. That's the introduction of the Ishopanishad. That's the first verse. Well, not the first. This is the introductory verse of Ishopanishad. So Krishna is Om. He's Purnam. He's never exhausted. He's not as if that millions of living entities are created out of him. So he's become less. No, that never happens. So he's Avyaya. So that all is being highlighted here in this verse. To approach the different energies of Krishna is to approach Krishna indirectly. One should directly approach Krishna, for that will save time and energy. For example, if there is a possibility of going to the top of a building by the help of an elevator, why should one go by the staircase step by step? What a beautiful analogy Prabhupada gives here. If there is an elevator, why would I want to take the steps to the top, right? So we should always approach Krishna directly. We should not get misled by our mind fooling us to believe that everything is being for Krishna. I am working 18 hours a day. Oh, it's for Krishna. No, if working 18 hours a day, you're not able to do your deity worship properly or chanting properly, it's not worship. I should not try to fool myself by that. This is a common phenomenon across devotees. We try to justify everything through bhakti. So that's Maya coming and fooling us in a bhakti garb, in a dress of a devotee, in a dress of a devotional practice. So we should try to worship Krishna as directly as possible. The 9 processes of bhakti we already talked about, right? Shravana, Kirtana, Vishnu, Smarana, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Mandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam. And we have examples of them. All of those qualities had been perfected by one or the other person. But there's Shri Vishnu Shravane Parikshida Bhava. So there's this verse which tells all of those 9. That Parikshid was Shravana, hearing, Vayasakhi Kirtane, Sukadev Goswami speaking, Prahlada Smarane, Prahlad in remembering. So all those. So there are all of them. So people have done that. So we should always approach Krishna directly. So if you understand the theme of this chapter, Krishna is presenting himself as the supreme, nothing above them, beyond him. And he's telling whatever way you are trying to do indirect ways, give that up. Understand that I am the Supreme Lord, come to me directly. Don't unnecessarily waste time. Don't unnecessarily waste your energy. Don't try to fool yourself. Don't try to trick yourself. Come to me directly. And he has gone through the pain and effort of explaining the different paths so that I can identify that, hey, Premna, is this what you're doing? Then I can point, okay, yes, this is what I'm doing. That means I'm doing it wrong. I'll go back to my direct method. So Krishna is very, very clear. He's the supreme. Please come to me directly. That is why he's belaboring through all this hard work. And then the last verse of this section is our last verse for today. Tapamiham aham varsham nigranam yutsarjami cha amritam chaiva mrityuscha sadasachaham Arjuna. O Arjun, I give heat and I withhold and send forth the rain. I'm immortality and I'm also death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. Again, Krishna is all the time now in this chapter is talking about me. This is a very poetic and a philosophical verse. He is temporary and he is the eternal. What Krishna is establishing here, that all the contradictions are reconciled in me, in him, in Krishna. So he's talking, if you notice, there's a contradiction, right? Heat, and then how is the heat dissipated? By rain. He is immortality and he's also death. He's spirit also, he's matter also. So he's everything, right? So he's truth, he's false. So normally we all think in terms of dualities, right? Good, bad, spiritual, material. So this is a very good analytical division that Krishna is presenting, that we as aspiring devotees, that I as a sadhaka bhakta can look at it and understand that, so we can focus on the spiritual and harmonize the material. So we are not being asked to give up this material world, but we are expected to harmonize it for our spiritual growth. That is the essence. Whatever we do in this life, in material life, we should try our best to harmonize it in our bhakti process, that it should help us in growing in our bhakti. So advanced devotees see the temporary and the eternal as Krishna himself. So Krishna serves as a beneficial by being death also. So when we see the destruction of the temporary, we become more inclined to the permanent. Right? So Krishna is trying to lift us out of this material temporary abode that we are in and grant us deathlessness. And devotees can get that. Devotees can achieve that. There is this famous example that Prabhupada gives is of a cat. When a cat is carrying his kitten in his mouth, the kitten is not afraid. He has full faith on a cat, on the mother. But when the same cat carries a rat in his mouth, the rat is just dying. He's practically, losing his, because he's about to die. So both of them are being carried in the mouth, but one has full faith on Krishna and the other has no faith on Krishna. So devotee is very happy when death comes, but when the death comes to a non-devotee, it scares him. So that's so Krishna comes as Amrita in death. So Krishna is showing the two ends and telling that I am everything. So in essence, this whole chapter, Krishna is establishing himself of everything. Details are there, but the essence is that he is everything, all in all. And we should avoid trying to be fixed in these negativity, in these indirect methods, and focus in the direct way. Okay, I'll pause here. If anything on anybody's mind, please share. We have 3 minutes more to go.
Haribol.
Haribol, Prabhu.
See, sometimes in so much information, especially in the culture of India, it seems that everyone wants to grab something, some part of his energy, and turn it into the only understanding or the perspective. But in the beginning of the chapter, which is really amazing, I'm trying to, okay, so how are you? Who are you? What are you? I mean, really, how are you trying to pull this off, Krishna? I mean, how can you describe this? And then Prabhupada, he says, by great energy, he says diffusion, he uses supreme will, mystic power. I mean, just analyze these terms which cannot be applied to anyone. If anyone tries to pull anything off before our eyes and we can't perceive it, he's a magician. But and Krishna's pulling something off before our eyes and we don't understand. But he's not a magician, because so much is going on perfectly. So much is going on continuously. It's not just you turn on the stage and the guy performs a trick. Something is going on all the time. And to grasp that is inconceivable, number one. So then how does one describe, how does the inconceivable get described? So initially, we're hearing this great energy, diffusion, will, mystic power. I mean, this is so heavy that you can start getting a perspective of what Krishna is doing, at least by his mercy. You can sort of grab that. But now I see that you're also showing, or Krishna's showing, that there's other things out there, that other things are going on, from 15 on down through 18, different things. First, in the beginning, I was just enjoying the ride. Now, all of a sudden, you put dirt in my face. You know, I was enjoying this ride, but you just threw dirt at me with all these things, you know. And then I was really, I didn't catch the point, and I was a little bit scared there when you said, "Watch out when you think you're doing your bhakti, but you're not." Well, devotees say that, you know, what was that? What was that point? If you could just clarify that point.
I was saying, Prabhu, we as devotees, I have this inclination to many times cover my materialistic activities with devotion. You know, like for example, I want to buy a new car, and I want to look good in that car, but I'll try to convince myself by saying, "Oh, this is for Krishna. With this car, I will travel to the temple, and I'll carry Krishna's stuff in the car." There's no wrong in that, but it's an indirect method. So me falling off the path is a high probability on that indirect method. We should try to avoid indirect methods and take up the direct methods, which we have been given in Shastras. I quoted that verse many times today: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam. And we have 9 direct methods. Why do we want to even go by indirect methods? And that's what Krishna is telling here. They are demigod worshippers, they are monists, they are people who think this material world is all in all. There are people who try to understand me by jnana, by karma, and all that. Why are you doing all this nonsense? Just come to me directly. No, I'm telling you right here that I am all in all, right? Gatir bharta prabhu shakshi nivashanam suranam suhrit prabhava pralayasthanam idhanam bijam avyam. I have everything. That one verse encapsulates that Krishna is all and all and everything. But we still try to capture Krishna indirectly because of my, and I'm talking about me myself, my lack of a sincere sadhana practice. I'm not strict, serious, and sincere in my bhakti. Or I'm trying to be still in the material world and present myself as a devotee. That's what I meant, Prabhu.
Okay, because and then at the same time, here you go. If you do not voice that sensitivity in your heart, then you're really doing it indirectly. Okay. But if right now, when you say that to me, that I want to get a car, but I'm identifying in a sneaky way, or it's a mixed type of devotion. Yeah, that's right. But if you say no, part of me is trying to be sneaky, but the sneaky part isn't my value. My value is that this is also my Father's gift to me, and I should use it properly. I mean, it has to be, you have to have your thumb on it and not deceive yourself. But at the same time, not cut yourself short of what is a necessity. Because if anything, you do need a car better than anybody, because who got the time to keep up with the maintenance and da-da-da-da, because you're afraid that you're outstepping and going indirectly, and that's fine. But that has to be visualized and capsulized within yourself, and each one of us. Because a lot of the devotees that I know in this group, they're all opulent. They're all really, wonderful products of a high society, and they're still functioning on a real devotional level. So, but you explaining it or exposing it, then there comes a sense of getting away from the chance of failure or getting caught in the false bhakti. Because when you said it, then I said, okay, where am I at? Is that me? What am I doing? Because everyone should be like that. And I appreciate you sharing like that, because I got to put myself in that. We have to always be, it's like the razor's edge. You only got a little room. You got a little room. And then that room is so fine that you must be very cautious.
You must be very cautious. Yes.
What did you say? The 3 things?
Strict, serious, and sincere.
Yeah, that's that razor's edge. That's all the room you got.
Yep. I totally agree with you, Prabhu. Yes, it's all about our heart, right? We can fool everybody in the world by presenting something as bhakti, but we cannot fool ourselves. So as you said rightly, that we should have that clarity in our heart of being strict, serious, and sincere, and then when we do an activity, then it becomes direct. Yes.
Yeah, because the Rolls Royce thing. Prabhupada in the Rolls Royce.
Yeah, he was traveling in a Rolls Royce.
The whole
Yes.
planet was upside down, and everyone was going left and right. You
Yeah.
know, but that was, I mean, that was a little bit too much for society. That was a little bit too for anyone to. No one can ever understand the devotional service, you know,
Yep.
unless it's realized through
It's really nice.
devotional service. So
Yep.
everyone looking, catching, or wondering. You know, it's just like the Rolls Royce thing. I think, you know, sometimes we have to be really careful. You know, but
Yep.
deep down inside, you know, even Bhakti-Siddhanta said, "Oh, it might be. Look at him. Everyone's bowing down and giving this and this and that." You know, he had to be very careful. Everyone has to be careful wherever they are, that they don't become what other people see. The Rolls Royce guy. Prabhupada's not the Rolls Royce.